Hi everyone, good evening and welcome to tonight's webinar, Leveraging Online Petitions to Create Change in Your Community. This webinar is hosted by JOFA and is the latest installment in our webinar series, which began about 2 years ago. My name is Rachel Lieberman. I'm the Assistant Director at JOFA and I am very excited to welcome all of you tonight. A few housekeeping notes before we start. There's a link to a question form in the first line of the description underneath this video. If you have any questions for our presenter, Michelle, please feel free to submit them throughout the webinar using the form, and we'll have time for Q&A at the end of the webinar. And number two, a portion of this webinar is going to be a slide presentation. So for optimal viewing, you can view this window in full screen. So oftentimes there is a particular incident that happens that frustrates or infuriates us and leads us to want to advocate for change. In the JOFA community, it can often be a comment from a rabbi, a press release from a Jewish organization, an incident that happens in a school or community. And these incidents often make us feel like we need to organize immediately, we need to gather the support of friends and community members in order to respond. And oftentimes we think that the easiest and most effective response is to get online, to leverage our social networks, and to start an online petition. However, as many of you who have started online petitions know, it can be difficult to create an effective petition. This is an art, and it's not always as easy as it seems. So this evening, we are very fortunate to have our guest and Michelle Reyf, who is an expert presenter who will be joining us to share some best practices about creating effective petitions online. Michelle Reyf is the director of Groundswell. She feels most alive when she is empowering faith-rooted changemakers working for justice. With superpowers in strategy and storytelling, Michelle's work is as an online organizer, campaign coach, and trainer. She's helped Groundswell grow to a community of over 200,000, with over 200 campaigns started on the platform. And we are very excited and very honored to be able to have Michelle join us tonight. And with that, I would love to turn the floor over to Michelle.
Thank you, Rachel. I want to give you such a thanks for organizing this webinar, and JOFA and the folks who are attending at 8:30 on a weeknight. It means that making change is important to you and you want to learn how to do it better. And I'm honored for your time and energy. So let's just hop right in. I will share these slides. All right. So the way that I framed this was how to turn a crisis into an opportunity for change online, because what we know about online petitions and how great they are at rapid response is they give us something that turns a moment, like Rachel was saying, of frustration or anger into an opportunity to bring justice into the world. And to give a little bit of background about where I am based, Auburn is a leadership development center for faith leaders working on social justice issues. And we do that through trainings, convenings, and research. And we are thrilled when we have the opportunity to partner with folks like you who are doing good work in the world on your campaigns. We call it building the multi-faith movement for justice. And we work with Christians and Jews and Hindus and Sikhs and Buddhists and atheists, and all are welcome. All are welcome in the multi-faith movement for justice. And to that end, we created Groundswell. Groundswell is a platform where folks can start and run online petitions for free. And with it comes a campaign coach who can help you make it as successful as possible. So this webinar will be based on what I would love to tell every person who comes to Groundswell to start a petition before they start a petition. And just to give you a portrait of what we've been up to at Groundswell since our beginning in January of 2013, you can see we've had 257 petitions created and over 400,000 signatures collected. That graph at the bottom shows the total number of actions taken over time, and we've just been thrilled to see people taking the tool set and running with it to make change in their communities. And the issues range. On the left-hand side, you can see we've got economic justice, education, the environment, gun violence prevention, human trafficking, immigration, whatever topic your community is working on, we've had a campaign on it. And so today I'm going to do a little bit of storytelling. I'll show you Groundswell and how you can use it, and then give you some online campaign tips. We'll do a bit of campaign coaching where we apply those online campaign tips, and then we'll leave plenty of time for Q&A so that we can get to all of your questions. So the story I wanted to tell is one that I think will be a great fit for the folks at JOFA who are doing the work of bringing women into Jewish leadership. This is I think a parallel story really in the Catholic community, and it's the story of Sister Tish. So Sister Tish, who is on the very left-hand side with the glasses, was a nun for 47 years. And Sister Tish, since she was a little girl, knew that she wanted to be a priest, but the Catholic Church does not allow women priests. At this stage in her life, Sister Tish has a serious disease, a serious illness, and she knew that she didn't have a lot of time left, and she knew that before she wanted to go, before she went, that she wanted to fulfill her lifelong dream and her call to be ordained as a priest. And so she was ordained as a priest by a group of women who do Catholic ordination, and she was what was called a catacomb priest, where she did it in secret. And what she did as a catacomb priest was, in her nursing home, she would offer last rites and pastor to folks who were at her nursing home. And when this was discovered, Sister Tish was excommunicated from the Catholic Church. And so the group that had supported her ordination and the network started a petition to Pope Francis to reinstate Sister Tish. And this is what a petition on Groundswell looks like. And so the title was Pope Francis Reinstate Fired Nun. And it said, ensure Sister Tish Rawls can continue as a sister of the precious blood by overturning her excommunication and all excommunications. As we enter the year of mercy, the people of God ask you to show Christ's mercy to Sister Tish and all who have been excommunicated. And so, of course, I was so inspired that not only did they want to stand with Sister Tish, but to stand with everyone who had experienced excommunication. And really, we're lifting up Pope Francis's call for the Catholic Church to be a church of inclusion. And here's the email that we launched that told the story of Sister Tish. And I favor email as a way to launch petitions because I think it's a really effective way to tell the story in long form. And it's something that you can't quite capture in social media. So I wanted to share that because I think because I want you to see your email lists and your listservs, and an email to your friends is a really powerful advocacy tool to combine with your petitions. And I could talk all day about how to write a great email, so let's talk about that another time. And I wanted to highlight this quote from the petition, that this was the framing that they were using, that as we enter the year of mercy, the people of God ask you to show Christ's mercy to Sister Tish and all who have been excommunicated. And this is a really, I think, powerful reshaping of an invitation for the Pope to shape what the Year of Mercy would look like. And the Year of Mercy is sort of what the Pope declared that this year would be. And they were saying, Pope Francis, if this is really the Year of Mercy, in a deeply faith-rooted way, in a way that was so authentic to their faith, they are inviting him to live that out by showing Christ's mercy to Sister Tish and all who have been excommunicated. And of course, we all have that language in our own faith tradition, and that we can call upon and inspire people from the depths of their faith to make change. And I wanted to highlight some of the media coverage that this petition got and why I think petitions can be so powerful. And what I recommend, like with launching an email to launch your petition, that doing media outreach is essential to spreading the word about what's happening. And so this is the Daily Beast covered this campaign. The Daily Beast has a readership of about 20 million people each month. So just incredible that the campaign, the reach that the campaign can have because of it. And I love the description. After nearly 5 decades as a Catholic nun, Tish Rawls became a priest and found herself cast out. Now she's calling on Pope Francis to do what Jesus would have done and bring her back. So again, right, that faith-rooted language that Katie, the journalist who covered it, pulled from the petition. So the petition gives the media the language that they then use to frame it. And so we do some really powerful storytelling and some powerful offense on our work for justice when we craft our petition and then share it with the media. And of course, you can hear the compassion rolling off of this piece. There was also local coverage in Cincinnati, which is where Sister Tish is from. Local media is a really fabulous thing to pursue and to build relationships with local journalists. There's always the national media, but we can make a huge impact locally as well. And that those relationships with media can continue over the length of a campaign and over the length of multiple campaigns. So the National Catholic Reporter covered her story. You can see that on October 30th. And then they followed up with it in November when she gave her first public liturgy as a woman priest. And you can see how the framing shifted, right? From Cincinnati nun excommunicated after admitting illegal priestly ordination to excommunicated nun to celebrate first public liturgy as a woman priest, right? And even the fact that they're using this phrase woman priest is so exciting. So building relationships with media over time and investing them in the work that we do. And actually, the National Catholic Reporter piece covered the petition. Over 5,000 people have signed an online petition to ask Pope Francis to overturn her excommunication, and those of all women priests and their supporters, according to a press release, which I also encourage you to write because they do end up showing up in news pieces like this. The petition will be delivered to Francis as part of the Church's Year of Mercy. So 2 things I would take from that. One is definitely doing a press release to alert local and national media, and then also organizing a delivery, because showing that something is happening is what that there's things going on is what the news wants to see. So a crisis is an opportunity to change the story, the outcome, and people's hearts and minds. The folks who are organizing Sister Tish's campaign are continuing to build out their Year of Mercy campaign, and there's more to come. So Sister Tish was really the ball that started rolling this exciting campaign on how do we use the Year of Mercy as an opportunity to raise up the issue of women's excommunication. And so I like to say that that petitions are as old as Moses telling Pharaoh to let my people go, and it's a tool that we can continue to get better at and better at. Because what they do so well is they get the attention of decision makers. I supported a petition was hosted on Groundswell that was addressing addiction in the country, and the folks who organized it did a huge rally in DC, and they, because of the petition, they had a multi-faith contingent of leaders, multi-faith leaders were able to deliver the petition to the White House department that administers drug-related policy. And the organizers told me that they wouldn't have gotten that meeting if not for the petition. So it can definitely grab the attention of decision makers. It demonstrates grassroots people power. You can sometimes, it might be easy to dismiss a campaign or a request as, oh, well, you know, who else supports you? It's just you. Almost like you and what army? And a petition is a fabulous way to show here's our army. Here is our army for justice. It also gets your message out, like we saw with the Daily Beast piece, that it tells the story of Sister Tish and their Year of Mercy campaign that was asking Pope Francis to look at excommunication as a place where he can demonstrate mercy. And it can grow your base for your next campaign. So the folks that are excited about Sister Tish's campaign will be excited about the next. They'll be ready to be mobilized the next time that something like this happens. And we've seen that again and again at Groundswell, where the folks who take an action on one petition about the environment are much more likely to take action on an environmental campaign, because you've identified somebody who cares about your issue, and they can sign your next petition. They can share your next blog post. They can donate to your next fundraiser. And you don't necessarily need a lot of signatures to make change. One of my favorite statistics is from the folks at change.org, who also run a petition platform, though not faith-based, that says 40% of the winning campaigns on the platform win with less than 200 signatures, which is to say, you know, sometimes you just have to ask. And so this is what the Groundswell homepage looks like. And you click Start a Campaign, and this is what the form is. It's just these 4 fields, and you can label which category your petition falls into at the bottom. You know, is it about education? Is it about the economy? And once you fill out that form, you're done and your petition is live. It's super easy, and I wanted to you know, go through. I'll talk about some of the tips for making each of these fields successful, from the petition title to whom are you petitioning, to what do you want them to do, to why this is important. Yeah, because we want people to sign it. So here's the formula that I've come up with as a distillation of what I've seen work over the 200 campaigns that have been started on Groundswell. And the first is faith, that, you know, as the saying goes, when you try to be everything to everybody, you are nothing to no one, something like that, right? That the idea is that when we build community with people who share our values and who are with us. And so our faith is something that unites us, and it's also something that touches a deeper part of us than anything that I know. And so the difference between saying to someone, look, this issue is important to me and I hope you sign this petition, and, you know, my faith teaches me that this issue is core to living a life that is aligned with our most deeply held values. And I know you share those values, and I invite you to sign on to this campaign. That it comes from a different place, and it can help people get over, you know, the resistance that we, you know, can often have of, oh, I don't have time for this, or, oh, you know, this isn't that important. Well, it is really important, and it's connected to what is central to our lives. Story. I I can remember details from petitions that have been started on the platform as though I read them yesterday, because like the children's book stories that we grew up with as kids, stories stick with us. Stories bypass our heads and go straight to our hearts, and we're people of story. We're wired that way. So I can't stress enough how valuable story is, just for getting people's attention and connecting with their hearts. They also demonstrate what it is we're fighting for. That in the abstract, I can say that oil drilling is a really big problem for the environment, but concretely, if I say that the water of children is being poisoned in a small town in a state, that you can really see and feel what that actually looks like, and get people to understand what's at stake. Call to action. You're inviting somebody to do something concrete on a petition, and this is the third field of what do you want the petition to be, but it has to be something concrete. You're inviting somebody to that a specific person has the ability to give you a specific thing, and that is what the petition is about. So I like to say the more specific, the better. And finally, urgency. The nature of our inboxes and of our social media news feeds and of our busy lives is that we respond to things that are timely. And when your petition has a deadline or a specific time frame, that people are more likely to take action. And this reminds me of if you have an hour to do something, or you think you have an hour to do something, and then you find out, oh, you actually only have 30 minutes. You're probably still going to be able to get it done, but you'll just work a little bit faster. And that's sort of the way that it works with petitions. And so this is a rule that I developed a short while after the platform was up. In this age, in the time that we live in, where attention is a scarce resource, in the sense that that folks have inboxes that are full to bursting, and news feeds that are full to bursting, and the places where people get information from others are really full, even our cell phones or our smartphones, that attention is earned by building trust. And we trust organizations that deliver on their word. And so I deeply encourage the delivery of every petition, because really what someone is saying when they sign a petition is that you are going to continue to work on this issue until there's that change has come about. And so delivering the signatures into the hands of the decision maker are a really important way to gain trust and demonstrate that your organization is committed and honored that someone signed their petition, which it is. Every signature counts, and somebody was touched and inspired enough to sign a campaign. The least I can do is make sure that it is delivered. So here are some extra tips on your petition as you're writing it. The title is really important. I would keep it short and punchy and make sure it tells people what the action is about. So think about how your social media feeds work, or how even when you look at the link of something, or where your eye goes when you first land on a page. Usually the headline determines if I'm going to keep reading or not. So, or whether I'm going to click into it or not, in the case of social media. So, you know, in that split seconds that somebody reads the title and decides whether to move on or not, you need to tell them enough that they can be invested or not. Similarly, the image works in a similar way. The image is probably the first or second thing that somebody's going to see when they land on the petition page, and it's just going to show up big on social media. If you're thinking of something like Facebook, right? You've got the title and a big photo underneath it. The image has to make me feel something. I typically recommend using photos of people because our eyes naturally gravitate to other eyes that we connect with other people's faces, and you know, being mindful of what emotion is this image making me feel, and you know, that can be anger or hope or compassion or excitement, but a strong feeling is more likely to get attention. The decision maker is the person who has the power to give us what we want. And it can often be pretty effective to name a single person. And the reason for that is based on one of the principles of a great organizer who is actually Jewish, who's the father of community organizing, Saul Alinsky, who talks about freezing and isolating a specific decision maker, because it really puts the attention and the pressure on them such that they can't pass it off, and really shines a light on who is responsible for giving us the change that we seek. The ask is the specific thing that we want the decision maker to do. So, you know, if for example we were working on a campaign around let's say raising the minimum wage, which has been an issue that's been in the news a lot recently, that we wouldn't just say raise the minimum wage, because then somebody could say, okay, well, it's $8.25, we'll raise it to $8.50. We have to be specific, and we have to ask for concretely what we want, and back that up with why. And a credible theory of change. I would not recommend starting a petition to President Obama to end climate change, because that is missing a bunch of things that don't make sense, and or that would be necessary for the petition to make sense. So plausibility is really important, and it doesn't mean that you should aim low, because petitions have accomplished incredible things. Like one that comes to mind is the young girl who started a petition for Bank of America to drop a $5 credit card fee that they were or a debit card fee that they were going to put in place, and you know, her campaign took off with hundreds of thousands of signers. But it was plausible that Bank of America could reverse its policy that it just had issued. But it's important to identify the correct decision maker and the correct ask that gives people a sense that, yeah, this petition can bring about the change that we're hoping for. So I wanted to take some time to apply what we have just learned, and specifically look at the formula, the faith plus story plus call to action plus urgency make a great campaign. And I see that Noam was able to join us, so I'll let Noam introduce the petition that actually JOFA started around women in Orthodox leadership roles. Noam?
Thank you very much. So just a little bit of backstory. The Rabbinical Council of America had previously passed resolutions about women in leadership positions, and they passed what appeared to be more of a resolution designed to be political rather than any sort of significantly halachic issue. In fact, they really didn't provide any basis whatsoever for what they were advocating for, and it seemed to be more just of a political statement that they were trying to kind of put their foot down on activity that some of the people weren't really in favor of. And so it seemed after this resolution that a lot of mainstream people were looking at the RCA as what they were representing orthodoxy, and a number of institutions, JOFA, the IRF, Yeshivat Chovei Torah, the leadership of those institutions got together and decided that it wasn't a halachic issue at this point in time. It was more of a popularity contest, so to speak. And so they decided to get a petition to illustrate that the support for women in leadership positions, specifically women rabbis, was larger and deeper than what the RCA was really taking into account. And so we started a petition, and in truth, we didn't have great expectations, just thought it was something that we ought to do. And we got, I think, 1,000 people in the first day or so, and basically within a week we had a couple thousand signatures. And we actually never did send the petition to the RCA. The benefit and what was accomplished with the petition is support. The mainstream media picked it up as well, and so I think what it accomplished was that it basically stopped any momentum that the RCA had. Basically, it stopped them in their tracks and made a lot of people who thought that this issue could simply be rolled over, made them realize that that wasn't going to occur. So I know this is a little bit different than usual petitions, because the expectation really wasn't that the RCA was going to take another vote and dial back what they did, but it was more to illustrate to them and anybody who was kind of sitting on the fence or who was kind of just going to let them kind of do what they wanted. It kind of illustrated that there was, wide and deep support and significant. I think I'm looking at our petition now. I don't know when that was, but over 3,000 people signed it, and a lot of them was just right in the first week or so.
Yes, it's an incredible success in the sense that you identified a crisis and turned it into an opportunity, and what was really valuable about that, I think it strongly reflects the urgency element of the formula, that when you're doing rapid response, that there is a timeliness to it, and people feel the need to sign and share immediately, which is why it sounds like, if I had to guess, you got 1,000 signatures so quickly, because people really saw this is important and we have to address this right away.
Right. So there was, it kind of trickled in at first, and then it kind of turned into a torrent, and I think we got the vast majority of them within the first week, and that's, I think, when we put the ad in, just illustrating that there was all these people who supported our position, and also there were very good quotes and comments that people made that were part of what we illustrated. But you're correct that it was kind of a pretty immediate response, and the beauty of the petition was it enabled a lot of people to very easily show support. And again, you're correct, it was an immediate reaction, so right in the moment people could see what the RCA was doing and then look at our petition, and people got it sent from Facebook and emails, and it really rolled very quickly and hit a nice peak, and we accomplished, I think, more than we thought we would be able to do. So it was very useful.
That's wonderful. And the piece that I see really clearly too is the call to action that you articulated of reading even just word for word from the petition, that you encourage Orthodox communities to hire women as halachic and spiritual leaders and clergy, and that it's saying that the declaration that was issued by this group doesn't reflect the values and desires of your community, and that statement is, you were calling for people to sign on to say, yes, this is what we believe.
Right. Keeping in mind, the RCA basically said that anyone who, I don't recall the exact wording, but basically it was anyone who hires or employs or publicizes women rabbis, that was grounds for being ejected from the organization. And keeping in mind that the reports about the vote were that there were a few people who were pushing for it, the mainstream leadership was not in favor of the resolution, and it passed with a bare majority. So of all the people voting, it was a few hundred rabbis who were supporting the RCA vote, and we had 3,000 people who were taking the other side. So I think it illustrated, how if there was going to be a publicity battle. And again, the point here, and I've been accused of trying to decide halacha by petition, but it clearly wasn't. Their position wasn't a halachic position, and we weren't making a halachic position here. We're just illustrating support for a particular halachic position.
And if I would love to hear, is there a story that illustrates why this issue is important? And it doesn't have to be one that you have told in this context, but as you're reflecting on a way that you could illustrate this to someone in your community or even beyond your community, why is this petition important? Who would be affected by this?
So the issue of women in leadership positions, and it's funny because I feel there's so many qualified women that I don't really need to be part of the face of it. There's so many people who could do this. Women can speak for themselves. They really don't need me. But there's many situations, and well, let me back up. In the Orthodox community, things happen either because rabbinical authorities make a statement, or also there's communal standards that are taken into account both in how people act and in how halakha gets decided. And so the facts on the ground, as my wife likes to say, are sometimes just as important as what the specific halachic arguments are. Now, obviously, the facts on the ground have to be, if we're Orthodox, and the facts on the ground have to be within halakha, but within halakha there can be different approaches, and so some people may take one approach, some people may take another approach, but when you establish facts on the ground and people see that women are giving divrei Torah, women are leading, and as my wife likes to say, nobody's exploding in balls of fire, there's no lightning coming out of the sky, and people see this and it becomes a normal part of their experience, and then they understand that yes, this is an appropriate halachic approach, and this is the way it actually should be, and those that are opposing it really aren't understanding where the community is at. And so I think there's lots of this, but
in that context, could you tell me about just one woman leader who is making a contribution to her community in this way?
Well, there's lots in our community. We don't have any women halachic role models yet. My wife actually is a first-year student at Yeshivat Maharat, so she, even up to now, is teaching and has a community role, but she doesn't have an official halachic title yet. But for example, we hosted Rabbi Rachel Berkovitz. We hosted Rabbi Yafa Epstein, And they came and they talked at our show, and people saw, the community saw that this was just another person giving wonderful shiurim and giving a great drush on Shabbat. And so without the support and without institutions and shows and people that will support them and give them opportunities to show the wonderful work that they can do, it's difficult for them to make an impact. So the change is going to happen, one, with excellent female rabbinical leaders, and also with a community that's going to support them and provide the platforms that they need.
I'm really compelled by the vision of your wife's journey to becoming a leader, and that there are, you know, young girls right now who are, for whom the door can be opened, and that just gives me so much hope. And so I'm really holding on to the image of your wife and to the image of the rabbis that you shared, who showed the community that women can and do lead and support a spiritual community. Thank you for those stories. And and you know, just I think the last part for me of the formula that I'd love to hear from you is, you know, what in your faith tradition is an inspiration for you behind this work, behind what was at stake in the petition?
You know, for me, it's I am, you know, I qualify as a feminist, but for me, it really is a matter of doing what's right. And the Torah, you know, our faith tells us we have to do what's right, and needlessly keeping people from doing work that they're eminently qualified for and that they should not be barred from is just wrong. And so, you know, I've thankfully great role models from my parents who spent many hours trying to make the community a better place, and I try to follow in their footsteps.
That's very clear, Noam. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, and what Noam just shared connected me to the petition in a way that just reading the paragraph, I wasn't able to see. I wasn't able to see the rich life, rich community behind the petition. And it's a fabulous petition, and I'm so thrilled at how well it did. And the invitation is to try out the formula: faith plus story plus call to action plus urgency, for your next campaign, to see what it's like. And so on that, I would love to. I'm so thrilled. We have more than 15 minutes to do some Q&A. I would love to answer any questions that came in through the form, and as Rachel invited, that the link is available there for you to please ask anything that is on your heart and mind, and that any question that you have will contribute to the group.
Great. So thank you so much, Michelle, for that presentation, and thank you to Noam for joining us. I thought it was really interesting to see the example that you showed, Michelle, about the nuns who are getting excommunicated, and to really see that play in parallel with the experience that we had with the RCA petition a few months ago. So one of the questions that came in that's come up for us at JOFA a number of times when we've been starting petitions is, what kinds of identifying information is needed for those people who sign petitions? Why do some petitions ask for zip codes or identifying information? And do you believe publicity deters some individuals from signing those petitions, even if they strongly identify with the cause? And what is done with that information about the people who sign the petitions? Why is that important to be collected, and how should people feel about putting their information out there when they're signing a petition?
Those are great questions. The information that is typically collected on a petition include your name, which for obvious reasons we offer our names as a representation that I'm the one who supports this issue. And then zip code is incredibly useful for showing, for a couple of reasons. One is to show the geographical diversity of the people who care about the campaign. So it's somebody in Portland, Oregon and Portland, Maine. It's somebody in Florida and it's somebody in Sacramento. It's somebody in Nebraska and Iowa and Mississippi, that all over the country voices are being raised in unison to support a campaign. Additionally, if the creator of the petition is organizing some local deliveries, say you are focusing on a Jewish organization in New Jersey or a congressional district, that being able to segment the petition signers by where they are allows them to follow up and say, hey, you're in New Jersey, really close to where the petition delivery is going to be. Would you like to participate? So that information is great. Sometimes they might ask for phone number for a similar reason, that to do personal follow-up about an opportunity to get more deeply involved. Mm-hmm. And then finally, one of the features I like about Groundswell is you can add a field to ask for further information. And one of the things that we'll ask is if someone is a clergy member, has a title, and I think, for obvious reasons that somebody would be moved or motivated by 100 rabbis signing on to something. And then you can also get creative. So this is, just as an example, if you were targeting Ford, the car company, and on a petition, say about a safety issue, and you could ask people, do you drive a Ford? And that way they can identify, like, I'm a customer, and customers are important to the company. So in that same way, whatever the if you are a constituent and that constituency is relevant to the decision maker, they want to know, because that's how they get a temperature reading on the people that are important to them.
Okay, great.
And then the question about press, and if that might, the question was if publicity might turn some people away. Mm-hmm. Right?
Yes.
I think that's where you can do some the word that's coming to mind is pastoring, to show people why it's important that we do take a public stand mm-hmm. on the issues that we care about. Mm-hmm. It might not come naturally at first, but it is a muscle that we can all learn to flex, and that we can see that our faith calls us to stand for justice. And if I'm just standing for justice alone in my living room, that's valuable, but what a greater impact we can make if we are willing to lift our voices up in chorus in public together.
Great. Thank you for that response. Another question that came in was the question about, like, who should be signing the petitions. Where this is coming from is a few months ago there was a petition that went around that was based on creating a change in a local high school. And then the petition ended up getting picked up by the press. It went on social media. It went viral. And there was this concern from the school that the people who were signing the petition were no longer their constituents. They were no longer the students or the parents or the educators. And now the petition was kind of just was off balance and was not reflective of their constituency. So what would you kind of say about how should we frame who the audience of our petition should be, and when should it be something that stays within a community, and when is it something that we should be putting out on Facebook? We should be letting anybody sign. What's the difference?
That's a great question. And that's, again, why it could be really valuable to have information like zip code. So once, say the petition has 10,000 signers, you could look and see, well, 1,000 of them are from our small town, and it's highly likely that those people are teachers and neighbors and folks who care about the issue locally. And it's great that there are so many others, because the recognition of the issue and the attention by outside people can be a powerful force that compels decision makers to see that they're not going to get away with ignoring our request for change. So that's one way you could do it. Another way is to use something like a checkbox to ask, do you go to this high school? Or maybe are you an alumni of this high school? And that will give you relevant information. And then the second piece might be that you could say, for example, you wanted to do you wanted just clergy. You could, I'm sorry about the siren, that'll pass in just a second. Okay, that should be better. That you might want to do something like a clergy letter, and you could call it that. You could say this is just a clergy letter, or this is, just for this group of people. And so you could name that up front, knowing that if you're sharing it on the internet, there is a chance that you will that it will spread wider. But specifying will really be helpful for that. And then finally, one of the strategies you could use is starting the petition, but really only recruiting signatories, person to person. So say you wanted to, that there were 50 top leaders that you really wanted to organize for a very specific issue, that you would do so in a targeted matter rather than going wide.
Okay, great. Thank you for that framing. Okay, so another question that came in is, what are ways to measure the success of a petition other than whether the change you're advocating for happens? Because unfortunately, sometimes we're either aiming too high, or a petition is not the right tool, or for whatever reason. How else can we think about success and goals for our petition?
That's a great question. I love that. Well, one of the things that comes to mind is what Noam shared in his story, that something was stopped in its tracks, which is really, really tremendous. There was an abrupt recognition that, oh, we have tripped a wire, and somebody was put on guard. That's really powerful. Another way is for the media to pick up your story and your framing of the story. So, one person tells a story in one way that describes your community or describes an issue, and it's not favorable to your position, and a tremendous win would be recasting that. So Sister Tish's story could have been told as, nun breaks all the rules and thinks she can get away with it, and instead, the story was a woman who has been a nun for 50 years decided to become a priest because it was her wish since she was a child, and that she administered last rites for people in her nursing home. That this is really an example of where the Pope can show mercy and reverse her excommunication. That frame shift is huge, because once the story changes, the outcome can change, and you can't have a different outcome with the same story. You know, there's that quote, you can't solve a problem with the same thinking that got you into it.
Yeah.
So that's another kind of success that comes to mind. Another is, you know, just making incremental progress. So, for example, there was a piece of legislation, a bill that was authored in Congress, and a group, actually Bend the Arc, a Jewish organization, started a petition around it, and the legislation hasn't passed yet, but it got additional signers in Congress. So they're making their way slowly but surely, and the Congress people who signed on to it got the courage to do the right thing because they saw that people were demanding it.
That's great.
So those are three things that come to mind.
Great, thank you. That's very helpful. The next question is, which I think might be our last question. Do you have like a litmus test or any tips for how to determine whether a petition is appropriate in a given circumstance? What makes you think, oh, the way to solve this crisis or the way to respond to this is a petition versus any other tool in our toolbox?
I would say that a petition is always a tool that accompanies other strategies. So a petition is an excellent complement to other work that is happening. So one metaphor for that can be, you have your ground game, which is the meetings that you're having, the educational opportunities where people are learning and discovering new ways of being in the world. You have the phone calls that you're making. You have the events that you're hosting. I mean, you have the work that JOFA does every single day that's laying the groundwork for a huge culture shift. And in the context of a specific campaign, you will see other tactics emerge. You know, a boycott, like whatever it might be, that those tactics are your ground game. That's the work that you're doing, the sort of the stuff you can touch in person, and the petition is your air game. That's where you are shaping the story, where you're telling the world what is happening about your issue, and you're offering a way for people to get involved. So, you know, what I might recommend in some instances is, before launching a petition, reaching out to the decision maker that you're thinking of working on, and, you know, having a meeting to figure out where they are. If it's pretty clear, like in the instance of the JOFA petition, you don't necessarily need to do that. But if it's not clear, you never know. They might just have never been asked what you want from them. So, you know, doing that first. And then the other thing I might recommend is, you know, pick 3 or 4 important stakeholders in your community who you trust as litmus tests, as people who are advisors and elders and mentors in various capacities, who can, you know, let you know, is this, how might this resonate?
Okay, great. Yeah, that all makes sense. And it sounds like that goes hand in hand with the conversation we were having earlier, that you need to have some connection with the change makers. You need to have a way to deliver that petition in order for it to mean anything substantial. So by laying the groundwork, that's building the relationships with the people who you're trying to impress upon that this change is important.
Yeah, and Rachel, before we sign off, could I just offer that if anybody wanted to, if they had a campaign idea and they wanted to just talk it through with me or someone on our team, that I'd be so honored to offer this for the JOFA audience, that if you go to this link, bit.ly / not sure what that's called, Groundswell 30, that it is a tool that connects with our calendars, and you can pick a 30-minute time slot to talk with our team. And there's a short form you can fill out to let us know where to call you, and we'd be happy to talk through any ideas.
That's great. Thank you, Michelle. And we're happy to send out that link and a link to Groundswell's website to people who have been joining us for this webinar, so that people can have that in their inboxes and forward it to any friends who couldn't participate on the webinar, and we'll definitely help get the word out that way.
Wonderful.
Any other closing remarks before we conclude?
I'm just so grateful that you exist. I'm grateful for the work that you do every single day. And I'm grateful, again, to the folks who are on this webinar at 9:31 on a Tuesday evening, because making change is so important to them. And thank you.
Great. Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Michelle. I know that I've learned a lot, and I hope that we have all learned a lot as a community. And I hope that this will also serve as a resource where the next time somebody is looking to start a petition, they can check out this webinar, get some best practices, kind of tighten up their narrative a little bit before they go live. So thank you so much for joining us, Michelle. Thank you, Noam, for taking the time to join us and to share that information about the RCA petition. And to all of you who are joining us, we hope that this webinar has inspired you, has given you some concrete tools to help you make more effective petitions. And if you've enjoyed this webinar, we hope that you'll continue to stay engaged with JOFA by joining our mailing list, by following us on social media, and by coming to any in-person events in your area. And we look forward to continuing to stay connected with you. So thank you very much, and enjoy the rest of your evenings.